Alright, so today I wanted to speak about what I think happened between Sae and Bunny in Spain. Now sorry, I know that this topic is pretty overdone already. However, I really wanted to give my thoughts on it, so yeah. Also, it feels stupid that I once again need to say it, but please don't take this seriously, like it's only for fun. But anyway, I'm not going to hold you anymore. Just be sure to leave a like if you are enjoying it. Also, subscribe to my other channels down in the description. Now let's get into it. So let's start from the beginning and get to Sae, who was scouted by Real at the age of 13. And he then went to Real to become the best striker in the world. But as we know, when he got back home to Japan, he was like a different person, and not gonna lie, he looked dead. He then told Rin about him changing his dream to becoming the best midfielder, as there are so many other players better than himself. However, both of us already know that, so now let's get into the fun part. Now there are two ways that this can go. Either Bunny was first in the Real Academy, but later switched to FC Barcelona, or he has been in FC Barcelona from the start. I will go over both these scenarios, but let's start with the one that is the most likely, which is that he has just been in FC Barcelona his whole life and not Real. So what could have happened between him and Sae? Because Sae really hates him? Most likely FC Barcelona was playing against Real, and Bunny was crushing it. It was an utter defeat, and he scored a ton of goals, while Sae scored none. And as Sae was playing as a forward, his primary goal is, of course, to score. This made the coaches extremely mad at him, and they compared him to Bunny, who was in his own age, telling Sae that he needs to better himself so that he can be on Bunny's level. However, this kept on happening match after match, and Bunny always seemed to be so far ahead of Sae, and a player he simply couldn't compete with. And with the coach's constant trash talk and comparison between them two, it was simply enough for Sae, who maybe just broke down, as he couldn't handle being compared to someone who felt so out of reach and ahead of him. To not be able to listen to the constant trash talk, he simply changed his role to becoming the best midfielder in the world. Yes, he felt defeated by this decision. However, it was what he needed to do to get some peace and quiet. He stopped getting compared to Bunny, who still played as a striker, and he thought that he could make his own path as a midfielder. However, each time Sae and Bunny would meet each other, Bunny would constantly remind Sae about how pathetic he is for changing his dream just because he couldn't handle it. He got more frustrated each time he heard that, and his mental clearly started to go downhill, and after a while he was so mad that his only goal became to defeat Bunny, which we can kind of see as in a chapter ago. He said that he would only play in the U20 World Cup against Spain, obviously so that he could go against Bunny again. Now I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I don't love this because this is a bit basic, and I would rather it be something completely insane. However, this was the best that I could think of, which is still pretty realistic. Now let's play with the thought that Bunny started in Real. By the way, this theory about him starting in Real has come to life due to it saying that he joined FC Barca midway during the current season. However, I think that this just entails that he joined FC Barca's first team, and not that he switched clubs. Anyway, let's just have fun with it and say that he transferred from Real. This would mean that he and Sae were on the same academy team, and that they would have played together. Now as we know, Bunny is a very sadistic person, I think is the right word, as he says that when he sees someone super happy, it makes him want to die. Now this could mean that when Sae arrived in Real, he was obviously super happy. I mean, the best club in the whole world had seen his talents and wanted to fly him over. But Bunny couldn't stand seeing Sae walking around happy and all that, which is why he made it his mission to crush Sae with everything that he's got. He firstly could have tried to freeze out Sae from talking and interacting with the others, as firstly Sae wouldn't know Spanish, so it would already be hard for him to interact with the others. However, I also don't think that Sae would be someone who would care too much about being frozen out, as he is only there for football after all. Bunny would realize this, and knew that he had to change his approach, so he would always try to sabotage Sae in either practices or in matches. For example, not passing to him when he could have, playing without him, and generally just not letting Sae get the ball. And as both are strikers, they kind of have to fight for possession of the ball. This led to Sae getting super annoyed and frustrated as he never got the chance to do anything with the ball. Hey, it's Natsu, mid-editing here, and I just wanted to pause the video to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already, and while you are already down there, why not leave a like as well? However, I still don't think that it would make Sae change his dream. Which leads me to the next thing, which is that I believe that Bunny was just so overpowering and better than Sae that he had no chance at all to fight for the striker position. Everything Sae did, Bunny did better, whatever it be scoring goals, making plays, or just anything. This made Sae getting less playtime at the striker position, as the coaches obviously prioritized Bunny, as he was the better and more dominate one. It only became worse after that, as Sae started to become forgotten. Meanwhile, Bunny just got more and more praise. This also made Bunny feel good, as Sae's first happy expression when he came to the team started to fast go into a much more despair and sad expression, as he felt excluded and never got to play. Which Bunny enjoyed seeing. Why he feels that way, I have no idea, as we haven't gotten that explained in the manga. Yet, however, I'm very hype about it. Anyway, Sae then knew that if he still wanted to make his time at the academy worth something, he had to make a change, so he accepted defeated against Bunny and changed position. This made it so that Sae got to play much more and became an outstanding midfielder, but even then, he was never truly happy as he had gotten pushed away from the striker position which he originally wanted. And Bunny made sure to remind him about that all of the time, as he always told Sae about how weak-minded he was, and how he would always be in Bunny's shadow, which later made him into this edgy self, as we see later in the story. Now I prefer this theory, however the one before is much more likely, so that's a bit off a shame. But with that said, it's probably neither of them, and it's going to be something totally unpredictable, which is what I love about the series, as most things are things that you could have never guessed, or at least for me. And I really wonder what could have left Sae looking like that, because he was truly broken down to his core. However, that's also why I can't wait for them to face each other in the U20 match, as their face-off will be insane. Firstly, with the flashback to what really happened, and then to Sae finally locking in and giving his all to beat Bunny. Man, I think that's like one of the things I'm looking forward to the most, if I'm going to be totally honest. Now I quickly want to become a bit more delusional, so hopefully you guys are fine with that. Anyway, I wanted to talk about something that I don't think I could make into a whole video. However, that's the possibility of Bunny and Luna being siblings or just family, like cousins. Now I have some fun things to talk about here. However, first I want to cover the biggest critic I got when I made my short about this exact thing, which is that Bunny and Luna can't be brothers, as they don't have the same last name. And you are right, however there are lots of ways to get around it. For example, their parents simply had a divorce and they didn't take the same last name anyway. Obviously this is a massive reach, however I think that theories like these are the most fun. However, I already know that not everyone thinks like that, as there was a surprisingly amount of people who trashed-talked my Nishioka video, which obviously was just for fun. Like I said, that he got beat up by Chris Prince and the World 5, like, come on. Anyway, back to Luna and Bunny. I feel like if they were siblings that would make the story so much more interesting for a bunch of different reasons. Firstly, the reason why Bunny is so miserable could be because he has always been in his big brother's shadow and never gotten the recognition he deserves, which could be why, if their parents got divorced, he chose to not pick the same last name so that he could move out of that shadow. Because obviously having an older brother, who is a super well-known professional football player, isn't that easy to live up to. So I think that he might have had super high expectations, which has made him felt a sense of sadness, as he can't say that this is really his own life. Now this is where it could be so cool, because I mean Sae and Rin are siblings, and if Bunny and Luna also are siblings, then that would create the most insane sibling clash in anime history. Or even better, if Rin and Bunny team up to kind of get revenge on their older brothers, with Rin obviously going after Sae and Bunny going after Luna. However, that also defeats the point with Sae wanting to crush Bunny a bit. However, it's fun to speculate. I don't know, having some sort of insane 2 versus 2 siblings drama would be so interesting to follow. Also, if Luna and Bunny actually are siblings, then it could be that Bunny did really start in real. However, after a while, he decided to switch clubs to the rival club, firstly to annoy Luna, but also to get out of his shadow, which was what Kaiser talked about in the Neo-Egoist League, as he wanted a new offer so that he could get out of Noah's shadow. As with Noah on his team, he could never become the best, and it could have been the same for Bunny. Anyway, if you like Blue Lock and videos like this, then I would highly suggest you subscribe to this channel, and while you are at it, leave a comment and a like, as it helps out with the algorithm a ton. And if you are curious to see another video of mine, then please watch the video that will be popping up on the screen now. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye!